In the dense, humid evenings of rural West Africa, when the air grows still and shadows stretch long across the red earth, a distinct buzz begins to hum. A sound so familiar, yet so feared. It's not just the presence of mosquitoes that unsettles the villagers, it's what they represent. In hushed tones passed down through generations, elders speak of Anwunta, the god of mosquitoes. Not merely an insect, but a divine force cloaked in mystery, responsible for sickness, suffering, and death. To some, Anwunta is a protector, warning the living through disease. To others, it is a punisher, unleashing swarms in response to moral or communal failure. But where does this belief originate? Could there be more to this ancient myth than superstition? And why has this idea endured in the face of modern medicine and science? Could Anwunta be more than just folklore? Perhaps a culturally encoded way of understanding real, invisible dangers that threaten life. This story is not just about mosquitoes or gods. It's about the space where belief meets biology, where storytelling becomes a survival strategy, and where culture fills the gaps left by science. As we uncover the tale of Anwunta, we'll journey through history, medicine, and myth. We'll explore how this symbol shaped behaviors around health, how communities interpret illness through divine will, and why understanding such narratives might hold the key to more effective public health strategies today. Prepare to meet a god who doesn't sit on a throne, but hovers in the air, waiting, watching, and perhaps warning all those who fail to listen. His presence is not just a superstition, but a cultural echo that speaks volumes about fear, survival, and adaptation. In this buzzing enigma, science and spirit clash, and occasionally they align. Long before colonial borders carved up the continent, and long before the microscope revealed the secrets of pathogens, the people of what is now southeastern Nigeria had already named the invisible tormentor that came with the dusk. They called it Anwunta. It wasn't simply a name for mosquitoes. It was a spiritual identity, a force interwoven with natural cycles and human behavior. In a world where knowledge came through observation and survival depended on intuition, this entity was more than a pest. It was an omen. Among the Igbo and neighboring ethnic groups, Anwunta was described in stories as a spirit of balance, a force summoned when humans broke moral or ritual codes. The sting of a mosquito was not random, it was a warning. Its buzz, a whisper of consequence. Oral traditions spoke of villages cursed with fever after the desecration of sacred grounds or the unjust shedding of blood. Children were taught to respect the night and to heed the quiet rules of the earth, not only out of obedience, but out of fear of retribution delivered by Anwunta. The mythology evolved through generations, shaped by collective memory and passed down through griots, grandmothers, and shrine keepers. In some stories, Anwunta took the form of a swarm, appearing suddenly at times of great sorrow or discord. In others, it appeared as a singular, unseen being, invisible, omnipresent, striking at will. But always the connection to disease was there, even if unnamed. Fever, fatigue, delirium, death. Before the words malaria or parasite entered local vocabularies, the people already understood the connection between the mosquito's bite and the body's collapse. Geographically, belief in Anwunta spread through oral diffusion, carried by trade, migration, and intermarriage. While the exact stories varied between communities, the underlying idea remained eerily consistent. Mosquitoes were messengers, divine, deliberate, and dangerous. Beyond myth and meaning, mosquitoes are one of the most biologically significant and deadly creatures on Earth. In Africa, they are not just nuisances buzzing in the night, they are ecological players, woven into the continent's complex web of life. But their role is paradoxical, essential to the ecosystem, yet devastating to human health. Mosquitoes, particularly the Anopheles genus, are native to the African landscape and have evolved over millions of years alongside both humans and wildlife. In their natural state, mosquitoes serve as pollinators, helping certain plants reproduce, and they form the base of many food chains. Fish, birds, bats, and amphibians rely on mosquito larvae and adults as a vital protein source. Their ecological value, though often overlooked, is real. But it's the female mosquito in search of blood for her eggs that has turned this insect into a vector of nightmares. In the African context, she is the carrier of some of the continent's most persistent killers: malaria, yellow fever, dengue, and chikungunya. With a single bite, she can transfer parasites and viruses that incapacitate millions. Malaria alone claims hundreds of thousands of lives every year, disproportionately affecting children under 5 and pregnant women. This relationship between humans and mosquitoes has triggered an evolutionary arms race. Over time, some human populations have developed genetic adaptations, like the sickle cell trait, offering partial resistance to malaria. Meanwhile, mosquitoes continue to evolve resistance to insecticides and adapt their biting behaviors, often rendering modern interventions less effective. And so, in the midst of forests, swamps, and human settlements, mosquitoes thrive. They are silent reminders that the smallest creatures often have the greatest impact. While science explains their life cycle and biology, many communities still cling to deeper symbolic meanings, like Anwunta, to make sense of their power and presence. For centuries, across many African societies, health and illness have never been understood solely through a physical lens. They are interpreted through layers of spirituality, morality, and tradition. In this worldview, Anwunta was not simply a god of mosquitoes, but a vessel through which disease was given meaning. Illness was rarely seen as random. It was a message, a punishment, or a spiritual imbalance. When a child developed a fever, or when an entire village was struck by an outbreak, elders often turned to the gods and ancestors for answers. Shrines were consulted, offerings were made, rituals were performed to appease what was believed to be the source of suffering. In many cases, this source was Anwunta. His appearance through the sting of mosquitoes symbolized a deeper problem, a moral or spiritual breach that needed correction. The bite wasn't just a cause of disease, it was a consequence of disobedience or neglect. This perspective shaped not only how people understood illness, but how they responded to it. Instead of seeking herbs or medicine immediately, some communities turned first to divination, or spiritual counsel. Traditional healers, often acting as both medical and religious figures, would interpret the meaning behind a mosquito-borne illness, prescribing rituals alongside remedies. Even today, in some rural regions, this dual response persists. A visit to a clinic may be accompanied by a visit to a shrine. Yet this isn't merely superstition. It reflects a deeply rooted belief system where health is holistic, involving body, soul, environment, and community. Scientists and health workers who understand this are better equipped to navigate the delicate terrain of belief and biology. Many have found success not by replacing traditions, but by integrating them, using storytelling and respected community figures to explain how diseases like malaria operate while respecting ancestral worldviews. Anwunta, in this light, is not just an ancient myth, but a symbol, a bridge between science and spirit. His legend endures because it speaks to a deeper human need, to find meaning in suffering, to maintain order in chaos, and to feel protected even in the face of invisible threats. While the myth of Anwunta continues to shape cultural understanding, it also poses real-world challenges, particularly when it comes to healthcare. In regions where belief in spiritual causes of disease is strong, people sometimes delay or avoid seeking medical help. The mosquito bite, instead of being treated as the entry point of a parasite, is interpreted as a divine signal. As a result, life-threatening conditions like malaria may go untreated until it's too late. This isn't due to ignorance, but to a worldview where health is not only physical, but metaphysical. A person bitten by a mosquito may be told they are cursed or spiritually out of alignment. Herbal remedies, spiritual cleansings, or protective charms are often used before or instead of modern medicine. These approaches, while culturally significant, don't always address the actual disease. In many rural areas, this can lead to higher mortality rates, especially among children and the elderly. However, public health organizations and local leaders have begun finding ways to bridge the gap. In some communities, traditional healers are being trained to recognize the symptoms of mosquito-borne illnesses and refer patients to clinics when needed. Others incorporate familiar spiritual language into health campaigns, portraying mosquito nets not just as tools of science, but as spiritual protection against the wrath of Anwunta. This blending of belief and medicine is beginning to show promise. Campaigns that respect cultural stories tend to see higher engagement and trust. In some villages, children are taught that using mosquito nets honors both ancestors and science. Elders, too, are more likely to support treatments when they are framed within the context of spiritual protection and communal harmony. By respecting myth while applying medicine, health workers are rewriting the story of Anwunta, turning a feared deity into a symbol of awareness, prevention, and ultimately, survival. Anwunta may have begun as a whisper in the dark, a name spoken to explain the unexplainable, but his legacy continues to shape how entire communities perceive disease and protection. He is more than a myth. He is a cultural compass, guiding behavior, shaping rituals, and silently influencing responses to the threats that hover just above the skin. His story, steeped in fear and reverence, mirrors humanity's eternal quest to assign meaning to suffering, to guard against the unseen, and to negotiate with nature in ways both symbolic and practical. As science reveals the biological truths of mosquitoes, their role as vectors, their reproductive cycles, the pathogens they carry, it doesn't erase Anwunta. Instead, it adds another layer to the narrative. Understanding the real dangers posed by these insects and the myths that have risen around them allows for a richer, more empathetic approach to public health. In the end, people don't just want medicine. They want meaning, and that's where myth and science must meet. The lessons of Anwunta show us that health interventions cannot exist in a vacuum. They must acknowledge the stories people believe, the fears they carry, and the spiritual frameworks that shape their decisions. By listening to these voices and speaking through their language, we build bridges between knowledge systems that have too often been treated as opposites. So as you lie under your mosquito net tonight, think of Anwunta, not as a god to be feared, but as a reminder that even in the age of vaccines and diagnostics, it is still stories that move people to action. It is still culture that protects, and it is still belief that makes medicine real. If you found this story eye-opening, hit the like button, share it with someone curious, and subscribe for more Myth Meets Science deep dives.